All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for listening to the show, watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. You guys are the best. I appreciate you very much. Speaking of the best, shout out to our sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, just minutes away from Highmark Stadium, that Lackawanna Orchard Park border. Great food, man. Great drinks. Great vibes over at Sunny Reds. Most of you are listening to this on Tuesday. A few of you will be watching this late on Monday. Same principle, though. We're in the second damn week of April, man, and it is still wintry like in Buffalo. I'm looking at my weather app right now, right before we hit the record button, and they're talking about wind chills in the low teens. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Is it ever going to be nice, consistently nice in Buffalo again? I mean, technically, yes. It just doesn't feel like it right now. Anyway, all right. So today, here's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to discuss 9 cornerback prospects for the Buffalo Bills in this NFL draft. And I kind of divided them into 3 tiers that I think would all be great fits, great additions to the Buffalo Bills. Not limited to 9, but we're going to talk about 9 today that I personally like. And pretty much anybody that we talk about, I think is going to have a real opportunity to come in and be a day one starter. If not a day one starter, early, very early in their rookie season. So we're going to spend about half, maybe a little more than half, talking about that. And then in the back end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Buffalo Sabres, man. They beat Boston on Sunday night. The Sabres have won 7 of their last 8. They've been in fuego at home. I mean, crushing it, man. 12-2 in their last 14 home games. A lot of encouraging signs. Yet, through it all, I still feel extremely conflicted right now about all of it. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Really don't know. We're going to discuss that as well. Busy week, primarily football talk here coming up, of course, on Talking Buffalo with the draft getting close. It's about 2.5 weeks away right now. Matt Moran from SB Nation, he's going to join me tomorrow. We'll talk Bills, NFL like we always do. Big show Thursday, our Buffalo Bills mock draft, 7 rounds, version 2, with my guy Anthony Prohaska from Cover One is going to join me for that one. And I'll tell you right now, if you don't know this already, Anthony is one of, and I've said this, I think he might be the most underrated Bills content creator in the game today. He is awesome. Great insight. He did a mock draft with me last year. It was one of our best shows, actually, of the entire year. So I cannot wait to have Anthony on. Not just the mock draft itself, but incredible insight we'll get from Anthony as well. So all that coming up this week. The end of the week, we'll probably have a pod bag episode where your questions, your comments, your takes about all things Buffalo, Bills, Sabres, whatever it may be. You put them out there, I respond to them. That'll probably be on Friday's show. One last thing, then we're going to dive in because I want to get to both these things today. Quick favor, if I could ask this before we get going. And I'm going to be pushing this on you guys all week, so be forewarned. If by chance right now you're watching this on YouTube, that's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. But I would like to ask you for a favor. Literally take about 15 seconds right now. Okay. If you got to pause this after for 15 seconds, be my guest. But take about 15 seconds, pick up your cell phone, go to either Apple or Spotify, whichever app that you use primarily for music, especially for podcast. Type in Talking Buffalo and hit the follow button. Like literally, that's it. Being subscribed, following us on the audio side is really helping us continue to grow Talking Buffalo on the audio side even more. And if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Most of these episodes do appear in video form on YouTube, but every now and then there could be an issue with a location, an issue with stuff going on at home, the camera, etc. And sometimes an episode doesn't make it to video. The only way you're guaranteed, 100% guaranteed to get every single episode of Talking Buffalo in podcast form in its entirety is by subscribing on the audio side. If you primarily watch on YouTube, I mean, that's cool. You can still do both. You can still subscribe on the audio side just in case. If you check in daily, you don't see a video, that means probably something happened. Open up the app, jump to Talking Buffalo on the audio side, and listen away. So again, thank you very much for that. Let's jump into today's episode. Cornerbacks. This is going to be a position that the Bills absolutely address in the draft. I don't think there's any question about that at this point, and probably very high in the draft as well. Where the Bills are right now when it comes to corner, it's been a mystery to me why Rasul Douglas isn't back and why he's still a free agent right now, unsigned. I think it's more the team than a money thing. Like there's theories that Rasul Douglas is still holding out for too much money and the Bills aren't willing to meet that contract demand. But there's 31 other teams that he can sign with too. So is he asking for too much money for 31 other teams around the league? Has he been communicating with the Bills? And they kind of got a let's wait and see type of deal? I don't know. But my gut feeling, and this is just a gut feeling, is that right now, I think it's more of a lack of interest in the Bills bringing back Rasul Douglas and saying, let's see what happens in the draft. And if you're still available after the draft and we don't accomplish what we set out to do with the draft, then maybe, we'll reconnect and see where we're both at. That's what I feel like things are at right now with them. Of course, the Bills did sign Dane Jackson, and maybe that plays a role in it as well. Like the Bills would be looking to draft a rookie no matter what. And Dane Jackson is the guy probably better suited to come off the bench and be that CB3, that backup boundary corner. Dane Jackson is he's a fine addition, but I don't want him starting. And I'm pretty sure none of you do either. The sooner that whatever rookie the Bills take in this draft, sooner they take one and it beats out Dane Jackson, the better. I would also point out before even getting into kind of like these three tiers that I'm about to talk about, don't always assume if the Bills take multiple corners in this draft, which I think is a very, very realistic possibility here, just because the Bills took one before the other doesn't ultimately mean that he's going to be the better corner, that he's going to be the one to start, that he's going to be the one to have a nice, successful career alongside the newly paid CB1 shutdown corner, Christian Benford. And I would say go back to the 2022 draft as reference. The Bills moved up. They took Kyrie Elam. In the 6th round, they took Christian Benford. Christian Benford was going to be the depth slash, hopefully he can make the roster and contribute in some kind of way pick. And Kyrie Elam was the 1st rounder who was going to be the long-term starter. And we all know how that turned out. So if the Bills take a corner in the 1st or 2nd round of this draft and they come back with another one, say, in the 5th, which feels like a really good spot to double dip when it comes to corner, because the Bills got 3 rounds, or 3 picks, I should say, in the 5th round. But anyway, my whole point is this. Whoever they take, you hope that they could beat out Dane Jackson. You want a Dane Jackson on your roster, just like a DeMar Hamlin to me. Those are good players to have on your roster. They're good depth. But I don't think they have any real business being a starter. And I think ultimately Dane Jackson was not signed to be a starter on this team. I think the disaster that happened when Christian Benford got hurt and Kyrie Elam had to come into the game against Kansas City has a lot to do with saying, you know what, let's get a crafty veteran who may have a much lower ceiling, but we know what his floor is. And that's a player like Dane Jackson, as opposed to Kyrie Elam, who had a high ceiling, but that floor, man, oh man, was it ever low. And he was it was a very low floor for Kyrie Elam. So anyway, I think that's why Dane Jackson ultimately is here. I really don't think that the Bills um, envision him as their starter. And if they do, it's not going to be for long. So anyway, I got 3 tiers with these corners, okay? And I got 3 guys in each tier. Tier 1 is if I'm Brandon Beane and the Bills are on the clock, I might run up and draft that guy personally myself. At least the first 2 anyway. The third guy in this tier, I'd be very pumped to have in the second round. But these are the 3 guys based on where I think they'll get drafted that I probably, and it's close, but I would probably be most happy with. Tier 2, these are guys I'd be very happy with. All 3 of them, I think, would be, or at least could be, day 1 starters. And then tier 3, these are day 2 picks, maybe early day 3 picks who could challenge to start right away. Like they definitely have starting caliber in them, but they may take a little bit of time to get on the field and hopefully stay there. But 3 dudes that I sure as hell wouldn't complain about if they ended up being Buffalo Bills. Personal criteria for these prospects, most of them anyway, they come down to a couple things. For me, watching highlights, I don't have time, and I'm always upfront and honest about this, okay? I don't have time, the opportunity, and on a lot of levels, the intelligence to sit there and watch hours. And I do have access to it, like a lot of other great content creators and media people out there. I just don't have the time, the opportunity, the energy, or the intelligence to watch hours and hours of game tape on any prospect before he's a Buffalo Bill. And again, I'm just keeping that 100 with you. Now, if a guy gets drafted by the Bills, I will spend countless hours, countless amount of time getting to know that person, watching as much as I could possibly get my eyes on to have a more informed opinion. Right now, it's pretty much it's watching highlights, it's reading, watching, and listening to the opinions of other people that I put great value and a lot of stock in. And then last thing, just my own personal opinion and vibes. Vibes meaning where I could see a player fitted in and how good or how not good I envision that player being in the NFL, specifically here, of course, with the Buffalo Bills. It's hunches. I mean, it's gut feelings, it's hunches. At the end of the day, that's what we all have. I think that's a big reason why a lot of us have our favorites or guys that we hope the Bills don't draft because of our guts, because of our hunches. You get a gut feeling that's not going to be a good fit for the Bills. Or conversely, man, I hope they get this guy. He'll be a great fit on this team. So hunches, listening, observing the opinions of people I respect and watching highlight tapes as much as I can. So that's where my personal criteria comes in. And in terms of these tiers, quick though, too. Barron, the kid from Texas, Will Johnson from Michigan. I don't have them in my tiers because I don't think, and I can be wrong, you never know, but I don't think they're sniffing anything close enough to 30 that, where the Bills wouldn't probably have to move up a lot to go get one of those guys. And while I do expect a trade up for the Buffalo Bills, I've said it on the show, I'll say it again. I think the Bills could go up from 30 to maybe 25, 26, or I think the Bills could come up from 56 because they have 2 seconds. They could package some other stuff. So I do see a trade up with the Bills, but what I don't see is the Bills going from like 30 to 19, 20, because I think that's what it would probably take to get one of those 2 guys. So just so you know, I don't have either of them on my list. Tier 1, let's start right here. Siobhan Ravel Jr. from East Carolina. Tore his ACL in September. Obviously, this is really dependent on the medicals. Taking him means you likely concede him being a day 1 starter, meaning I don't think he comes in and starts necessarily from day 1. But boy, oh boy, his ceiling, I feel like, is as good as any defensive back in this entire draft. I really do. I mean, unless you count Travis Hunter, of course, as a DB, but he's a unique case. Anyway, his ceiling is really, really high. He could play all schemes, massive ability, great ball skills, really good tackling skills. potentially he can be another Christian Benford type. And even if you don't see it in year one, 4 more years of him alongside Benford is certainly exciting. I believe he's been a reported top 30 visit for the Bills. I'm sure they're interested in him. I know they're interested in him. They certainly should be. He's one of those risk type players that we've talked about on the show pretty much since this offseason. Sometimes it might be an injury concern. Sometimes it might be a player who has character issues, some immaturity issues, some things they've done off the field, in high school or college. And sometimes you got to roll the dice and you got to take a chance. And he feels like the kind of potential high end corner. If he didn't tear his ACL, this wouldn't be a conversation. He'd be a top 15 pick. Everybody I've talked to, a lot of people that I respect, their opinions again. They say universally he is a top half of the first round caliber player were it not for the injury. So maybe you don't get the same Ravel as a rookie. He doesn't even start a game as a rookie, but I'd still be very excited to get him because I think his ceiling is a Pro Bowl, hell, maybe even all pro caliber corner. So he's in my tier one. The second guy in my tier one, Maxwell Hairston of Kentucky. Honestly, the only knock against him really is that at 5'11 and just 183 pounds, he's a little bit lighter than the Bills typically will take a guy corner. He also has, I believe, 31-inch arms, which is kind of short, pretty short, but this dude's lightning fast, man. 4.28 at the combine. Best of anyone at any position at the combine. He flies. And he's a baller. And he's a feisty one at that. He had a really great 2023 at Kentucky. He had 5 picks. Here's the thing, though. I feel like 30 is really iffy. I think he might go higher than some people, a lot of mock drafts, a lot of projections that we're seeing. You might have to go up and get him a few spots. I certainly wouldn't trade down thinking you're still going to get Hairston. Maybe, and I'm not talking a big jump. Again, maybe like you go up to 27 or something like that for a guy like this. I would be willing to do it too. Because again, I think, and this is kind of a pattern, and I've been beating this drum for a while. We keep talking over and over and over again about the D line, and understandably so. Okay. And I'm not advocating that the Bills don't address defensive line early in this draft. Okay. But it keeps being, well, you got to get to Patrick Mahomes. You got to get to Patrick Mahomes. The Bills can't do that. And you got to get to him to beat him. I'm not saying that's not true. We saw what Philly did to him in the Super Bowl, but you go back to that AFC Championship game, and if you want to torture yourself, rewatch it. And what you'll see is Patrick Mahomes not getting any kind of pass rush, no real danger in the pocket because he wasn't holding the ball. Guys were open right away all day long. The Bills secondary couldn't cover a soul between Taylor Rapp being out, between Christian Benford getting another concussion in the first quarter. The DBs just stunk. And the Chiefs took advantage of that. Patrick Mahomes took advantage of that. So I'm on the page. Originally, going into free agency, I was even on the page. Go get yourself a top tier corner. Spend the money and give me 2 shutdown corners. Financially, though, it just didn't make sense. You can't have premium pay at every position on this team. You got to have some cheap labor. So early in the draft sounds like the premier spot to get a good talent that could step in and start right away, and B, do so at dirt cheap labor. So you go draft Hairston in the first round, or Ravel in the first round, and you just, you already gave Benford an extension. Man, you got 2 corners that you got locked up for the next 5 years potentially. That is awesome. Last guy on my first tier, then we'll take a quick break here. Kobe Bryant. That's the name. Kobe Bryant from Kansas. Now, he's not a first round pick, okay? This is a round 2, maybe early round 3 kind of guy. Like if the Bills go defensive line or something other than corner, maybe receiver, they shock you, safety, I don't know, whatever. With their first 2 picks, I think Kobe Bryant would be a pretty solid late in the second round, or maybe you have to trade up a little bit from 62 to get him If you really like him and the run of corners has already happened, you do that. Or if there's still some out there, you trade back, you get in the third round. My point is this: he's got pretty good skills. He's primarily a coverage guy. He's got a mean streak, highly competitive, just like, the famous name that he got from Kobe Bryant. Pretty fast, a 4.53 40. Um, I don't know that he's necessarily a very high ceiling player, so to speak, but he's a pretty high floor guy. You could do a lot worse than Kobe Bryant. And again, this wouldn't be with one of their first two picks. This would be a little bit later. A guy who I think is a starting caliber corner in the NFL that you didn't use a first, or maybe not even one of your second round picks, or at least not your first second round pick on in the draft. So that's why I would have him in that first tier. Come back, fly through these next two tiers, and we'll talk a little bit of Sabres as well. All right, I'm back here going through these tiers. We just did tier 1. All right, so tier 2. Again, these are guys that I don't think I would love them like in the first round, but I would love to get one of these guys in the second round, ideally, at 56. But even if you had to trade up for them from there, I would feel really good about that. Well, at least feeling good about trading up from 56 for the first two. Anyway, Azare Thomas from FSU, 6'1", just under 200 pounds, a very prototypical look, prototypical build. He's a very willing run defender, and both Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott spoke on that before the owners' meetings. In fact, pretty blatantly so, that a guy who could tackle is an important trait for what they're looking for in a corner. Not a big playmaker, only had 2 interceptions at FSU, played more than 35 games over 3 years. So that's a little bit concerning, but he feels like one of those projections that could really shine. Like someone you look back at and you can't believe this guy didn't go in the first round. Plus, it'd be the second straight year that they took a Florida State guy in round 2. I wouldn't hate this pick at all. So that's one. Trey Amos from Mississippi. Worth noting that on last week's Talking Buffalo, our first Bills mock draft, David Tilton from Cover One, who was my guest, he actually took Amos in the first round. The vibe I got from fans who listened to the show or watched the show weren't all that happy about that, but I can see that happening. He's regarded as a really good in zone coverage, the ability to play man coverage, very good as well. Okay tackler from what I understand. Again, from what I read about, hear about, watch, pretty solid. Okay, we'll say solid tackler. Maybe not the most aggressive tackler out there. I think he'd bring an attitude to this team, maybe probably that Sean McDermott would like. And if he's picked, I think this is a day one starter. Like he feels NFL pro ready from day one. So again, you could go get maybe a trade up in round 2 here, a day one starter. I'd be happy. I don't think he has the ceiling that Ravel does, but probably more of a sure bet to be at least pretty good. Like considering, again, a torn ACL for Ravel, that's always scary. A corner coming off an ACL, we've seen it with Trey White. Very scary. It took Trey White quite a while, and he's been, he's older, and he was a veteran, and it took him well over a year to get back to full strength. He was back to full strength because that first month of 2023, he was awesome. And then he suffered the Achilles injury, unfortunately. But anyway, that's how I feel about Amos. And then the third guy in the second tier is Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, who's a clear day 2 pick. This is not a first round possibility. This is very likely a day 2 pick, maybe a very early day 3 pick. Now, look, most of these guys I'm playing catch up with, and I'm trying to learn about as much as I can in a short amount of time. But not the case with Benjamin Morrison. I'm a Notre Dame fan, a big Notre Dame fan, and I watch literally all their games. So I know him very well. This is one of a handful of guys in the draft where I feel really confident and informed about what my opinion is. Sucks, too, because he got hurt last year. He missed Notre Dame's title run. He had a hip injury. That sucked. But strength of his game, intelligence, leadership, Great leader. I mean, God, was he respected by Freeman and the staff and the fans at Notre Dame. He could definitely be a future leader on the Buffalo Bills or wherever he goes. I think he's best suited for zone, at least for now, and that's what the Bills primarily do. He had 3 picks in 2023. He had 6 back in 2022. I love this kid, man. I would not be mad at all if the Bills took him anywhere in the second round because I keep going back to the intelligence that he plays with and the leadership. He is a leader, and Sean McDermott loves leaders in that secondary. I think even though the skills eroded, I think last year to some extent they missed the leadership that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde brought to the Buffalo Bills during most of McDermott's regime here. So going to get a guy that I think is a natural born leader like Morrison, I think would be really sound. All right, tier 3. And again, it sounds like tier 3, well, it's not tier 1 or 2, and it's not. But these all, including these 3 guys right here, are guys that I'd be very happy with the Bills taking. Number 1, Noah Williams from California. He's a day 2 pick. Really has underrated ball skills, and he's at his best in zone coverage. He had 4 picks last year with Cal, 15 over the course of 5 seasons in school. Concern from what I've read and seen and learned about him is that he's got a Kyrie Elam quality. And I'm sorry to sound like I'm shitting on Kyrie Elam, but it is what it is, man. And by that, I mean he's too handsy. Very handsy player, and that's alarming for sure. But just with the other 2 guys coming up right here, I'm not jumping for joy. I'm not going to jump for joy if they took Williams, all right? But I don't dislike the pick at all. I wouldn't. I think he's got a great chance to come in and at least compete with Dane Jackson right away. And if you're getting him in the late second round, I think a guy who could come in and compete from day one at worst is a good pick. So that's one. Next guy, Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech. I think he's an early day 3 pick. In fact, both these last 2 guys here are day 3 picks. Much better suited for zone than man. So depending on how much the Bills, how much more they're going to play man this year, may or may not play out well for him. Strong is ironically a very strong kid, plenty of good physical traits in his tool bag. Ideally like him as a 4th rounder at 109. And I'm not 100% sure he's a starter, especially early on, but he can become a really good player. And I'm fine with a player like that in that spot. And to be clear, I wouldn't count him out as a starter or a formidable starter by any means. That's why he's on one of these 3 tiers. Last guy here, Zy Alexander from LSU. Again, another early day 3 pick. And the reason why I would have him up on high tiers and why I'm not saying Alexander's one of the best 9 corners in the draft. I'm talking situationally too, like where the Bills would take him. Let's just say in the draft, they go edge. Then they come back with a defensive tackle and a wide receiver. You get to day 3, they're still looking for a corner. This, in that case, it's going to be a great pick, man. It really would. But if things don't go that way and they got to wait to that 4th rounder, this could be a good one. He's like a lot of these guys. He's a good zone corner, pretty solid ball hawk. He had 14 picks in his college career. Very good tackler. One of the better all-around corners in the draft, but kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type. The biggest knock against him is he's not really explosive. He needs to get better with his footwork from everything I've read. But that said, again, if the Bills go into day 3 without a corner and they end up with Alexander, I'd be pretty pumped. Pretty sure he had a top 30 visit with the Bills as well, which definitely carries some weight. I'm not sure if it was an in-stadium visit or via Zoom, but I know that the Bills have spent time with him. So that could be very telling. So again, that's 9, and there's others, but those are 9 corners that when this draft is over, if we see the Bills with any of these guys, I think that's definitely a nice building block. I have all the confidence in the world that the Bills are going to take a corner no later than the end of day 2. They're not going to get to the 4th round without having taken a cornerback, unless the only scenario where I could see that happening is they use their first 3 picks over the first 2 rounds on other positions. They're unsuccessful, get into the 3rd round. Maybe at that point after Friday night, which would be night 2, maybe they call up Russell Douglas. They work something out. They say, you know what? Let's just bring back Russell this year. Dane Jackson can back him up, and we will revisit this position next year. That's at least on the table, but I don't think it's very likely. All right, so that's it with the corners. Before we get out of here, and this will be quick, suck Buffalo Sabres here. They've been red hot as of late. Okay, again, 7 of their last 8 they've won. They beat Washington, Vegas, Winnipeg. All 3 of those teams are leading their divisions right now since March 10th. So 3 of the 4 division leaders around the league, they've all beaten since March 10th. They've also beaten Ottawa and Tampa, who are definitely going to the playoffs. So they've been hot, and they've been doing it against good teams. They've won 12 of their last 14 at home, which is pretty remarkable because this team has sucked at home for quite a while. Even a couple years ago, where the Sabres made a legit run and nearly made the playoffs, probably the biggest reason why they didn't make it that year was because they sucked at home. But they've been really good at home this year. The Sabres have went from being buried in the Eastern Conference to, they're ahead of 2 teams now, and they're tied with Pittsburgh. They've climbed their way out over the last month or so. And when you look back at the season, and it does carry validity, you're going to look at that the 13-game winless streak, of course, is the big reason. And it happened. You take that away. If they would have found a way to win even 40% of those games, Sabres probably make the playoffs. That's been their biggest problem. Then the other problem is I just ran off them playing well against these good teams. The problem is they played against a lot of shitty teams. I think I saw a stat from 27 to 32 in the league. The Sabres actually have a losing record against. So there you go. Don't blow leads. Beat the shitty teams. Things could have went really different is what I'm saying with the Sabres this year. Again, they've been hot. They've also, by being hot, they've likely played themselves out of a top 3, maybe 4th pick in the draft. So they went from 3rd or 4th from the bottom of the league to, as I'm recording this right now, they're 9th from the bottom. So the Sabres may not even end up with a top 9 pick in this draft, where 3 weeks ago, man, they were in the mix for, at worst, a top 3 or 4 pick. So that matters. It does matter. I'm truly conflicted right now. All right. Really conflicted on how I should feel about the Buffalo Sabres. Like, does the fact that they've been so hot lately actually mean anything going forward? Because ultimately that's what it's all about. And I got some pros and some cons from what I've seen. The pros of what they're doing right now, you look at 3 guys on this team. I mean, there already were stars or superstars, whatever you want to call them, but Tage Thompson's been incredible again. He's got 43 goals this year. Alex Tuch's got 33 goals. This guy has been a great player for the Sabres. I don't think he gets the appreciation. We talk about Tage and Dahlin, who Dahlin's the 3rd guy too, by the way. I mean, all 3 of these guys have further cemented themselves as absolute franchise cornerstone types of players. And we talk enough about Tage and Rasmus, and we all know that it sucks that they're superstar players, but they're rotting away their existence right now, their careers with the Buffalo Sabres, not even sniffing the playoffs. And that sucks. I'll tell you, we don't give enough, I don't think anyway, enough respect to the game of Alex Tuch. I mean, dude's got 33 goals this year. He's one of the few, I think, legit leaders on this team. And he plays all over the place. This dude's been on the top line, the second line, the third line. It seems like he's playing with a different combination almost every other game. He's just been really sensational, man. So there you go. Those 3 guys have really established themselves as true, legitimate core centerpieces of this team. 3 guys that I think you could have a winner around. 3 guys that if you get the right fit, the right scheme, the right whatever it's got to be to get right. Though these guys are part of the solution. They're not part of the problem. Comfortably could say that. And Dahlin, I mean, shit, man. The numbers, the record speaks for itself. When Rasmus Dahlin doesn't play, the Sabres are 0-7-2 without him. It says a lot. So that's good going forward. Those guys have proven they're for real. I think another thing that long term could be a great thing with what we're seeing lately, Zach Benson. I think he's made a pretty big leap. He's becoming really good. Throw the 10 goals and the 27 points in the freaking garbage can right now. Who gives a shit? He's becoming a problem for other teams on the ice. There's other things. Jack Quinn has woken up. Yuri Kulik doesn't seem to be overmatched out there at all, especially being as young and inexperienced as he is. He's got a really bright future, and we're seeing a lot of it, especially lately. Peyton Krebs has been pretty solid. McLeod showed, early in the season, it was like, well, is this guy going to, was this a fluke how well he's playing early in the year? It's not. He showed his early season success can be sustainable. These are all good things that are being highlighted over these last 4 to 6 weeks or so, that you could take as positives going forward. Just like another thing too, just like losing, winning can be contagious. Playing good down the stretch will give this team a lot of confidence going into the offseason. And who the hell knows? The way they're looking down the stretch here, some of these young players stepping up, having your core of 2 or 3 really solid star to superstar players, maybe that does attract somebody. The Sabres sure as shit got the money to spend. Maybe that does attract a free agent to want to come here over the summer, or maybe even a guy that is willing to waive his no trade clause to come to Buffalo. I doubt it, but I'm just saying it's possible that what they're doing right now, and you're looking at the pros of what they're doing right now, you could put it into that category. But the cons are very strong as well. First and foremost, this team has earned 0, and I mean 0 benefit of the doubt. They shouldn't get any benefit of the doubt, and they won't get any benefit of the doubt until they make the playoffs, period. 14 years. 14 years. I don't give a shit how much promise they've shown down the stretch. I don't give a shit about winning 7 of 8 in late March when they're buried in the standings. I don't give a shit that they even have 3 superstar players on this team right now that you could build around. I feel sorry for those players, again, because I feel like their careers are just rotting away in this cesspool of an organization. And that's what they are. Let's call it what it is. 14 years. You're tied with the New York Jets for the longest drought in professional sports. Never mind the fact that you've already set the all-time NHL record. Again, you ain't getting no benefit of the doubt. Well, at least you're not getting it from me. That's a promise. Kind of repeating what I said earlier, too. Getting hot down the stretch, they've probably played themselves out of one of the top 3 or 4 prospects in the draft, which, if you're a pessimist, which you have every right to be, you'd be like, who gives a shit? They'll get the 3rd pick in the draft, or they could have got the 4th pick in the draft. What does it matter? What's it going to change? Trust me, I understand that skepticism. I really do. Also, a con is I'm horrified that Terry Pegula is going to truly believe that the solutions are actually in the room. Like he said, reportedly a couple months ago before they went to Montreal and then got that shit kicked out of them 6-1 that night. Just an absolute disgraceful embarrassment of a performance after your owner meets with you guys. But anyway, is he going to believe that the solution is truly in the room and therefore gets a little too content with things? They're going to conclude that just Dahlin being out is the reason why they didn't make the playoffs. A lot of the year they were hurt by having an assistant or two, and then maybe those guys are the sacrificial lambs and get canned, but then that would be it. UPL, who has sucked this year in net. He has sucked this year in net. Freaking terrible. Terrible. Gonna play just off a little bit this year. He'll bounce back. We gave him a 5-year contract. He'll bounce back. We don't have any real urgency to go out and get a guy very capable of playing 40 to 50 games in net. If Devin Levi's not ready to be that guy next year, there's no real urgency because UPL is going to be fantastic again next year. Just jumping to those conclusions because of what we're seeing down the stretch, which, in fairness, I don't understand how that's even possible because even though the Sabres have played very well down the stretch, Reimer far and away has been the better goalie. Even during this hot streak that the Sabres have had, UPL has still kind of sucked. Um, and this team, even with a healthy Josh Norris, make no mistake, they need another top 6 guy. All right. They need another top 4 defenseman. And guess what? Speaking of, it's not Matthias or whatever the goddamn hell his first name is, Samuelson. It ain't him. It ain't him. Again, the Sabres playing well down the stretch. We were all concluding Samuelson, if he can't get traded, he's going to get bought out. Does Terry Bagula and Kevin Adams say, he'll be fine. They'll be fine. So does Bagula conclude that? And if he does, his mouthpiece, Kevin Adams, is going to as well. I never thought Kevin Adams was going to get fired anyway, even if this team sucked down the stretch. But, playing well like this certainly seals the fact that that's not going to happen. And again, I have no evidence with this team that a strong end correlates to a strong start next year. Seen this rodeo before where they play respectable down the stretch. Now, they've been a little more than just respectable, but still, I see nothing to correlate this. I really don't. This team always seems to get in its own way, and it feels like that's never going to stop. They play better when they feel like, or when it looks like they're done, or when they are done, I should say. That's it. So to put a wrap on this, man, I don't have any faith. I just don't. It's likely hurting their draft stock, but I can't lie, okay? I can't lie and say that if I'm watching objectively, hoping for the best for the Sabres, which sometimes I wonder at this point if I even am hoping for the best. But if I am, I can't say the way they've been playing isn't a fun, exciting, and for now anyway, at least a winning brand of hockey. So there you go. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you as always for watching and for listening. And again, if you happen to be watching this on the YouTube side, please go type in Talking Buffalo on Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and make sure you're following us there as well. Matt Warren from SB Nation joins me tomorrow. Mock draft coming up on Thursday. Talk to you guys then.